Can they stop him? They can't. David Nugent makes his mark. Zamora! He's done it this time.
Oh, as it goes for Cresswell. It's in. It's got it.
Excellent save from Nugent. Goal!
Into the area. It's gone. Nugent. Come off. And Billy Davies. He's the man.
Yeah, so eventually the unbeaten run comes to end at Reading. And if people remember, that was that Reading team. I think they got like 107 points that season. And we gave them a real good game at the Medeski. But the run coming to an end, you think that was big blowing if we could have kept that going. So we didn't finish too far. I think about 8-9 points from the top two. Just a couple too many draws maybe. But do you think we could have challenged for that second place? If Reading, obviously that's a freak season, Reading getting that many points.
Yeah, again, I can't quite remember about injuries and suspensions and what took place in a lot of these matches. But as you know, we were certainly in and around it. There's no doubt that the Reading away, again, they were a club that was flying high. Very, very good front players, if I remember right. Kind of wide in front. Players were very, very potent. Had a lot of pace about them. Could score goals. And it was unfortunate, but you know, good things come to an end. We knew that we just had to pick ourselves up and then we had to go again.
Yeah, it takes some doing that though. 22 games unbeaten. Imagine if a team does that now. It's like you look at Leeds now. They're probably the best team in the league and they lose quite frequently away from home. It's so tough in this league. On a lighter note, I was curious if you remembered this. You always had a great relationship with the fans. Do you remember Billy Davies Day against Norwich? Where I think everybody in the crowd had a Billy Davies mask on. I found a picture of it the other day. What was that like? 16,000 people with a mask with your face on.
Yeah, I remember it. Not the prettiest mask to put on, Daniel, I've got to tell you. But certainly I remember it and it was great fun and very much appreciated by the supporters. And it just came back to your 22 game thing. Obviously, it was a very proud moment. I think we equalled the great Invincibles run. Of many years back. To get that type of run in the Championship was obviously very special. Great credit to the staff and the players and everybody at the club. The fans played a huge part as well. And it certainly was a very special moment. But going back to the mask situation, as I said, we could have done with bringing in Brad Pitt to maybe get a wee photo or two taken. Something like that. And it was all good fun. I must admit it was great fun.
Yeah, I've got a picture somewhere with all the fans with the masks on. I'll email it across to you.
No, don't you dare. I'll kill you if you do that.
But yeah, that season, again, we reached the playoffs. Now, I always found this was curious. So both times we reached the playoffs, Derby and Leeds, we'd actually play them on the final day. Did that have a little impact going into the semi? A little bit more bite on the last day? Like, I think we rested a few players in the Derby one and the Leeds one going into that.
Yeah. No, again, there's no right and wrong. I've said this in the past that if I look at what's took place in playoffs and playoff finals, I've done things differently. For example, it would be Preston. I went away and prepared them 3 days before the game. Took them to a lovely spa situation where there was a lovely setup of the pitch and tried to get their minds relaxed. I remember we flew early with Preston as well to go and get to the stadium, look at the stadium, have a look for the players that never seen this stadium, get them comfortable, and then in the other final, I done it slightly differently, where I only went away 2 days before. So there's never a right and wrong. The bottom line is with Preston, Claude Davis slips, and on the day we just don't play to our usual high intensity or get those 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 10 performances. That can happen, but certainly getting into this next one, we knew it was a very difficult challenge ahead. And again, we're facing the might of Leeds United.
Going into those two playoff campaigns, aren't the two? Which team going in did you think had the better chance? The first season or the second season? Do you think you'd evolve the team that second season? Because they got 5 points more, the team in the second season than the first one.
No, I don't think you can separate them. I think there's too many variables in the league with other clubs and other teams, and too much other events that took place with injuries and suspensions. it's very difficult to compare because both of them were very well equipped and had put in a great season. I think both teams had overachieved, to be honest with you. We were never expected to be anywhere near the might of these big clubs that we talk about. West Ham with a 36, 38 million pound budget. Leeds United with a huge spend as well. You look at their team, huge spend and very difficult challenges. So I think both of the sides, as you talk about, Daniel, they had their own special strengths and you know what they could give to us. And again, when you go into the playoffs, I don't care who you are, I don't care what your tradition is, I don't care what your history is. The playoffs can throw up anything for anybody.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into those playoffs against Leeds. The first leg away from home, David Nugent scores that unbelievable run. What was your memory of that goal? Right in front of the North End fans to get us 1-0 up.
Yeah, that's right. Nugent went and had a fantastic finish. And of course, you remember, right, I think there was about 35 or 38,000 in the stadium that day. It was jam-packed with high expectation of Leeds, obviously. And then Nuge goes and scores that first goal. And then that little so-and-so Eddie Lewis, I think if I remember right, Daniel, that magic left foot that I talked about for set pieces, he goes and bends one in at the top corner and he makes it 1-1. And it was a great finish by Eddie. I was devastated. Obviously, there was Eddie and Heels and Cressy were on the other side. Three great players for our club. But in the end, it was a great finish by Eddie.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview and they were talking about how you told Carlo Nash it was either you didn't want the wall to jump or you did want the wall to jump. And he was arguing with you, he wanted it the other way around. And then the ball goes in for the free kick. And I can't think if it was the interview. And they were saying that you was fuming. He was like, I told you, didn't want that to happen.
I told him, jumping wall. I said to them at the time. But Carlo obviously was 6'10", whatever the hell he was. He decided, and I always believe, Daniel, again, I give great respect to each goalkeeper. They've got to be comfortable. But certainly from my point of view, my advice at that time was to have the jumping wall. The sloping wall was very important as well to get that height where we needed it. And I've got to put trust in my goalkeepers. They wanted a standing wall. I did put them right up the backside. We went into the dressing room. But at the end of the day, I've got great respect for all these players. Have got to be comfortable and they make decisions. And unfortunately, once again, I was proven right, Daniel, but that's another story.
Yeah. Now, next, we're going to have to touch on it. I know you've spoken about it before, but for North End fans that haven't heard it, the whole job done thing, do you regret saying that? It got it taken out of context, perhaps?
I'm so glad you brought this up. I was talking about this just recently in a podcast. And what you've got to remember here is that when you go into the press conference after the game, and there's a lot of games get played. I've done it myself at different clubs. You sometimes play games, but the conversation went like this. I said, in relation to the first leg away from home and getting a 1-1 draw against a very good Leeds United side, in relation to the first leg, I felt it was job done. But, now here's the but, Daniel. But, we all know it's only the first leg. We all know there's a very difficult second leg coming up. We cannot and should not be complacent at all because we've got a 1-1 draw and we know that this tie is far from over. What the Leeds United press done very cleverly, and I've got great respect. Listen, we all play these games. I've got great respect for them. They cut out the but. They said, Davies says job done.
Yeah.
That's not what happened, Daniel. Davies said job done in the first leg of the playoff, going to Ellen Road and getting a 1-1 draw. And then the manager of Preston, an experienced manager, said to the listening press, but this tie is far from over. We know we can't rely on anything going into the second leg. This tie is far from finished. And it's a very difficult job in the second leg to go and win the match. Daniel, completely taken out of context.
Yeah.
Misinformation fed out to our fans and their fans. It worked for them because what they done is they created this big monster that I had said, job done in the tie. Do they honestly think that this experienced manager is that stupid that he doesn't realise that in the playoffs, first leg and second leg doesn't actually matter? The results don't matter. It's getting the second leg out the way and getting that result that you need. So I can assure the Preston fans listening, Daniel, it was taken out of context. They were very clever in what they done, and respect for that. That's what they done, and they made a big thing out of it. And unfortunately, too many of our people bought the lie.
Yeah, because in terms of the actual first game, just if you isolate that first game, it was job done. That was what a draw at Ellen Road we would have all took beforehand.
How can Daniel say it's job done? Daniel's now claiming that it's job done in the first leg. What you're explaining there is exactly what I said in relation to that. Then getting a 1-1 draw at Leeds United, obviously, it was a very good result for us in the first leg. But let's not be kidded. We're not fooled. We're not fools. We know what takes place. And give them credit where credit's due. They used that as a weapon to beat us with. They used that as a weapon to inspire their team and their fans and their players into a frenzy. But on the night, and we'll go into it, on the night, they got the breaks, they got the luck, and they got the floodlights going out and everything else. It just wasn't to be.
You couldn't have written that night, could you, Dave? It was like a film. Like all the stuff that was going wrong. Before we get into the game, I wanted to ask this. It's always a lineup that gets spoken about, that we started that game with 4 strikers on the pitch. Dickie-O, Ormerod, Marcus Stewart and Nugent. I think Jarrett might have dropped to the bench. What was you thinking? Obviously, it was tactical. What was you thinking behind that, if you can?
Well, you had Ormerod and you had Marcus Stewart. Both of these players like to play in wide areas, working out to in. And when we looked at the Leeds United team and we looked at the situation, then we knew that with Nugent, Danny Dickie up front, we had that big guy, small guy. But we also knew that Brett Ormerod was very important. He made fantastic runs. He's got great energy, not only offensively but defensively. We wanted Marcus Stewart to drift from the wide, defending the wide area. Just a little bit like the famous Romanian player Hadji that played in the wide area, but wasn't a winger. But what he done is he would start on the wide area and then he'd go and play and drift into pockets and get himself into good positions. That was the kind of thought for Marcus Stewart, a very similar type of player, wonderful left foot, great football brain, excellent technical player. Start on that left side, but then when we take possession, start to find yourself in pockets, play between them, play behind them, get yourself into the final third. And with Brett making that run on the opposite side, both offensively and defensively, we were more concerned about their fullback, a very attacking fullback, and Brett could do that job. But let's not be kidded, Daniel. Losing Brett Ormerod after 10 minutes was a disaster for us. Disaster.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when he colleagues breaking his leg, you're just thinking, is this not going to be our night straight ahead? You've gone all in with all those tactics that you just said, and then you bring in on a midfielder in. I think Simon Whaley comes on for Brett Ormerod, and so that lineup gets spoken about. But really, a midfielder came on anyway to replace Brett Ormerod.
Well, not only that, I don't. Fans can have an opinion. And again, it's everybody's opinion. There's no right and wrong. But don't forget, managers and staff have all the information on players, families, who's carrying a little knock, who's been up sick. You speak to players on a daily basis. You speak to medical department on a daily basis. You speak to sports scientists in relation to the stats that's coming back on players and their levels of fitness and energy and, where they are, etc. There's a lot goes into making decisions. And one of the things that fans need to realise, it's not just a case of picking teams. You think long and hard. You look at opposition. And don't forget, we got there. And we got there because we picked good teams. We picked good formations. And we got a lot right. But in the end, we get to the floodlights going out. 25 minutes we waited for the floodlights. And then here comes the big factor. We worked very hard at set pieces. And our player of the year, Yul Maweni, is the one that switches off for a second and their striker goes and scores who Yule was marking. And again, that's just human error. You can't legislate for human error. Yule had been a fantastic player for us that season, deserved his player of the year, which he was picking up. And unfortunately, he just switched off for a second, and he allowed the striker to go in and score that first goal, which was very important. But I think, looking back on it, Daniel, Ormerod was a huge loss, Brett. The 25-minute delay didn't help us. And I think I even get criticised. I decided to go and sit in the dugout just for a bit of peace of mind and gather my thoughts. And then all of a sudden I get told about, look at this manager sitting in the dugout causing problems. I can't remember what happened, but all I decided to do, Daniel, was go and sit in the dugout, get a rest, just let things take place, gather my thoughts, and just watch what happens. But even that became a problem for some of the fake news and some of the nonsense that was written.
Yeah, you can't do right for doing wrong, can you?
Exactly.
Like we spoke, it's just small moments. Claude Davies doesn't slip, Maweni doesn't let his man go. And we're not sat here talking about why he started with 4 strikers on the pitch. It's what a great decision that was to start with 4 strikers. Just management, isn't it?
Well, it's easy to criticise. It's not just 4 strikers. You're talking about Ormerod and Marcus Stewart. You're not talking about two kids here that are inexperienced, and you're talking about 2 quality players. And quality players that know the position, understand the position, and have played there for a reason. But if you lose the first goal because of good play or because of a better quality, then you can turn around and say, okay, we've got this and we've got that wrong. But in the end, it was human error. It was a switch off by a fantastic player. They just lost his marker, and it happens to the best players in the world. These things happen. That's why our sport is such a wonderful game.
Yeah. So in less than 2 years, you're watching Healy that you've had sold from you, Lewis, Creswell, all leaving the pitch, celebrating getting into the playoff final. Is that, he's just thinking if we could have kept these players, or it's just football, isn't it? But must have been a frustration watching those players coming off.
Yeah, obviously it's a frustration. But as I said to you at the start, Daniel, you've got to respect the club, Preston North End. Preston North End, if they get fantastic offers, if they've developed players, if they get themselves in that position, then this is a club that's got to go down that road. You know, back then, they've not got the millions and millions of pounds of West Ham, and they've not got the big investors. They're doing a grand job under difficult financial resources. And when these opportunities come along, then the club has got to make sure that the resources and the finances are taken care of. But unfortunately, it hurt us that year because we did lose some very important players in David Healy, Richard Creswell, and that little so-and-so Eddie Lewis.
Yeah, so we've lost to Leeds. The 3rd season, are you thinking, right, we can have a proper go at it the 3rd season? We've got a great team. Or did you know that you was gonna end up leaving? 4 weeks later, you would be the manager of Derby. What actually happened with that?
What actually happened was this. After the playoff against Leeds, I met Derek Shaw in the Swallow Hotel in Preston. And I made it clear to Derek, look, we've hit the bar, we've hit the post. I firmly believe that we will do it in the third season, the third attempt. I believe that we will get there in the 3rd year. And I said to Derek, look, Derek, the staff and the players have done a wonderful job. The staff deserve to be looked after, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Let's go again. And Derek made it clear to me in the Swallow Hotel that he was not prepared to reward any staff member or do anything. Now, here's the interesting part, Daniel. I then find out that Preston North End are touting my CV all over England. And it became clear to me that Preston were deciding that the 2 playoffs was the best time to go and cash in on the manager and the staff and start again. And when I found that out, then I obviously knew. I was then told by the club that I was given permission to speak to Charlton. They would not give me permission to speak to Derby, come in the Championship, but they were giving me permission to speak to Nottingham Forest in League One. I think Stoke City might have been there as well. I can't remember, Daniel. I go and speak to Charlton because at that point I know that what the situation is. I'd already met the chairman. I already informed him that I wanted to go again into the third year. I told them that I believed we could do it. And then, of course, when they refused what I suggested to them for the staff, and then I found out about the touting of the CV, I went and spoke to Charlton. Believe it or not, Daniel, and I'm sorry for going on here, but I went and spoke to Charlton. I was then heading to speak to Derby, but I'd left Charlton, and basically it was my job to turn down. I agreed with Richard Murray, the chairman. I sat and had a chat with them. Alan Curbishley had just left the club after 15 years. I looked at the club and I looked at Alan Curbishley and I looked at the Premier League. It was a Premier League salary. It was Premier League bonuses. The job offer was there, contrary to the fake news that I wasn't offered the job. It was my job to turn down. I left there to go and speak to my family. I was heading to Derby to speak to Derby. On the way to Derby, I spoke to the chair. I spoke to two people in one of the board's house. It was 50% less salary. It was 50% less bonus. It was not a monetary decision. I didn't leave Preston because of money. I didn't join Derby because of money. The money that was on offer was best at Charlton, but I felt on a footballing decision, I felt that going to Derby, blank sheet of paper, they asked me to revamp the academy. They asked me to come into Derby and revamp the staff and the team. They asked me to work in a 3-year plan. And I just looked at the situation and I felt that the Derby situation for my career development and the timing of it and what was going on at Charlton with Alan Curbishley, etc., etc. And incidentally, Daniel, I think I got it right because I think it was Ian Dowie that took the job from me after that. And you can look how long Ian lasted. Very difficult time for Ian. I think he only lasted a couple of months, 3 or 4 months. It was always a difficult job. I recognised that as a difficult job. I decided that Derby was a better challenge. But let me make it clear to the Preston fans and the fake news, it was not a financial decision. I didn't leave the club for financial reasons. I was not a greedy so-and-so. And if I was, I would have went to Charlton on a Premier League wage, which didn't happen.
Yeah, so you've got on one hand, you've got Charlton that you didn't feel was quite right. Obviously, that got proved to be right. Dowie got sacked. I think they came down either that season or the season after. You've got Derby with a 3-year plan, youth academy, chance to do that. And then you've got North End telling you, nah, we're not going to back the players. If you had have got that back in, would you have stayed at North End?
I didn't want to leave. There was no reason for me to leave. At the end of the day, you know, I felt that we did. We just missed out twice. I felt that we were on great momentum. And I honestly believe we could have done it in year 3. And I said that to Derek Shaw at the Swallow Hotel. And don't get me wrong, Daniel, let me make this clear. I had a great working relationship with Derek Shaw. I got on great with Derek. I had a wonderful time with Derek and the board. It didn't need to turn as sour as what it turned. And it shouldn't have because of the misinformation and what took place. And it was disappointing. I understand that if I was like David Healy and Crazy and Eddie Lewis, where the club decided that they were going to cash in or it was time for me to move, that's up to the club. I've got no problem with that. But don't make out that this was my choice, my decision, because it certainly was not.
Yeah, right. And Preston fans will be delighted to hear that finally someone speaking about it. So you go to Derby. After everything that you've just said, how did it feel when I think we played you that September? And I remember you was getting abuse from the Preston fans, and you're thinking, I've done all this for the club. I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to be backed. How disappointing was it to get that reaction? It's part of football, but at the same time, you've done a lot for the club in the last few years.
Well, like I've done in the last number of years, Daniel, including back then, I decided to take the position of a dignified silence.
Yeah.
I decided that let bygones be bygones. Let's just move on with our life. Let's move on with our careers. I wish you well. I've got great respect and great time for Preston and the fans and the board, etc. The club made a decision just like they do with players, no problem at all. And that dignified silence was important. But the abuse that I took was unnecessary.
Yeah.
It was misguided. It was misinformation. And unfortunately, to say that I went because of greed was probably the biggest factor, because the money decision was certainly going to Charlton. And as you know, Daniel, that never happened.
Yeah, definitely. So you've been abused in the game at Derby. New Year's Day, come to Deepdale. I think we was maybe second, you were third, something like that. And I always remember, so it's quite a hostile game, that the atmosphere was, and you're coming out the tunnel, you turn around to the town end, you just started applauding the town end. And I just thought, I was looking around thinking,
Daniel, why would I not come out of the tunnel and applaud North End fans? I knew at the time there was a bit of misinformation. They'd been misguided. And I knew at the time that it was important for me to keep that dignified silence, not to come out and talk about it. And why would I not do that? I had great respect for the fans, the PNE fans, great respect. I had great times at Preston. I had great people that were still there that I worked beside. And unfortunately, that's what happens. People have got short memories, and people just can't help themselves. And that's the game we've chosen. That's the game we're in. But I've got to say, if I was to do it again, I would still walk out of that tunnel and I would still applaud those fans.
Yeah, definitely. So time's a great healer, isn't it? I think a lot of North End fans now, obviously everything that, well, we've been in mid-table mediocrity for what feels like years, but everything that happened now, people look back on those years. I certainly do. It was like a great time to be a North End fan. It was exciting. We was challenging for the playoffs. We had great players playing for us. Everyone felt together. Fast forward to today. What do you make of where the club is now?
Well, obviously, it's very difficult from the outside looking in without knowing what's going on and what the financial situation, etc. A great result against Cardiff, as you said earlier on. Fantastic result. Believe it or not, Daniel, and some might think it's not the case, but I genuinely want them to win every single week. They're a great club. They're a club that gave me my opportunity. They're a club that I respect for what they've done for me in my career. And I'll never forget that. And I'll never ever stop thanking them for that. So it's a club that I always hope do well. And I want to see them constantly winning matches and producing good football.
Yeah. Every time for the last 10 or 12 years, a manager leaves his post. I see it. You see it on social media. Bring the king back. Is Billy coming back? Got to ask it. Has it ever been close?
I think I just left the Premier League at the time. I can't remember. I can't remember when you guys were in League One. But when you were in League One, I got a call from Peter Ridsdale. I met him in his house. I think it was somewhere in Lanarkshire. Can't remember where it was, Daniel. I'll come back to him in a minute. But I met Peter in his house, had a great chat with Peter just a few years after I'd left. Peter was very apologetic in relation to the behaviour of certain fans and certain people at the club. He apologised on behalf of the club for what took place. I had a great chat with him, a great meeting. I then left that meeting and had a big decision to make whether to go into League One with Preston or to sit tight and wait to see what else comes up in the Championship. I felt I could contribute to the Championship again. And what I did do, Daniel, is I text Peter back and I let Peter know that unfortunately I decided that League One wasn't for me at the minute. Thanks for the offer, but on this occasion, I would move on to something different.
Yeah. Okay. Is that something you're looking to get back into, football management?
Well, I am, Daniel. I've got to say that I'm available. I'm ready. I've got to say that the other very disappointing thing is that, and I think it was Ryan Lowe was the manager at the time. Just at the start of the season, my management team and I wanted to go and watch Preston North End. We made contact with the club and Peter. And unfortunately, we were told that we weren't welcome back at Deepdale by Peter. It was very disappointing. It was at the start of the season. There was no pressure on the manager. I just wanted to take in some games in England. And unfortunately, I was told by my management team that Peter made it clear that I would not be welcome. It happened again. I can't remember. Thereafter, again, we tried to go to the game. It was denied. Peter again denied us access to the stadium. And then on the third time, I decided that I wanted to go to the game. Unfortunately, as I said, we weren't welcome. We did buy a ticket. I've got no problem buying tickets to watch Preston, but we did buy a ticket, went into the game and watched the game. And unfortunately, the saddest part of all is that my management team have been told that as long as Peter is the chairman, then there will never be a chance of me returning to Preston North End as manager. And I have applied for the job, believe it or not, Daniel, over the last number of years when managers have left. I have made contact with the board. I do believe that it's still a part of my destiny to take that club into the Premier League. But unfortunately, that's the true facts of the situation. It's very disappointing. It's their decision. It's up to them. But I am available. I'm ready to go for any club that is wanting a manager to come in and do what he does. And we'll wait and see what takes place. But I wish North End all the very best. And I hope they continue to develop and do well.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Do you think purely because you didn't want to come down to League One all those years ago? That must have been like 10 years ago now.
Yeah, I think maybe Peter held a bit of a grudge. I really don't know. Because Peter said that it's because of the animosity of how I left. Well, I didn't leave because of animosity. I left because of what I explained to you earlier. This wasn't a personal decision for me to leave. This was a move that was taking place. So there was no animosity for me on how I left. It was clear why I was leaving. And then there was no animosity when I went and met Peter in his house. With my advisors, and I had a great chat with Peter. Never had a problem with Peter. I've got no problem at all with him today. But when we try to go to some games to watch North End and we're told we're not welcome at the club, and then on the third occasion we decide, no, we can't stop or let people stopping us from watching a game. Let's buy some tickets. I contacted my friend in Preston. We bought some tickets. We came to the game and watched the game. And then, of course, my management team got told when we applied for the job, not once, but I think more than once, we get told that Peter has said that as long as he's the chairman, there will never be a chance of me ever going back to the club. I don't know why, Daniel. That's just the facts of the story, and it's disappointing. But I don't hold any grudges. I wish them well.
Yeah, that is disappointing. I mean, my next question was going to be, if the time was right in the future, the circumstances, would you be open to being the manager at Preston North End? But as long as Peter's at the club, that sounds like that's not going to be a chance of that happening. Obviously, they've got a manager now, but...
Yeah, they've got a management in place and you wish them well, as I said before. My situation's simple. I'm a self-employed football manager. I'm available to go back in. I'm ready to go back in. I've evolved and studied and done all the qualifications. I've been to university and done diplomas. I've been watching games all over the country. I've been doing club visits abroad and learning from big clubs and people in positions at those clubs. I'm excited, Daniel. I'm very passionate. I'm ready to go. My family's healthy. The time is right. And I can't wait to take on that next challenge. And I'm open-minded where that is, whether it's Scotland, England or abroad. I'm looking forward to the project like I had at Preston Derby. Forest once, then Forest twice. And again, I'm looking forward to that. So, ready to go, Daniel, full of passion, full of commitment, and full of desire to win again. And I can't wait till it happens.
Yeah, I think you'd be a great addition to a club. I say managers out there, there'll be teams getting rid of the managers in the upcoming months. So, yeah, Billy Davies, you're available. You're ready to get back into football if the opportunity or when the opportunity arises. Yeah.
Absolutely, Daniel, that's the case. And as I said before, it was a perfect storm over the last number of years. It's quite simple. I don't need to be fit. I'm fit already. You don't lose what you know. I'm up to date with knowledge, and I've evolved a bit with the game over the years. Get me back on that training ground, and let's see what happens.
Definitely. Speaking of evolving, I see you're on Instagram. I was going to say that it's at official Billy Davies. If you want to give Billy a follow on Instagram, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, it is at _Billy Davies. Billy, this has been absolutely brilliant. I think the North End fans are going to love this.
Listen, it's a pleasure. As I said, sometimes sitting back and having a dignified silence. I just want the punters and the fans of Preston to know that, I certainly didn't leave because of money. It was never the case. But as I said, Daniel, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I'm delighted to speak to you. I'm more than happy to answer any of the fans' questions. If they want to chat about anything, I'm more than happy to explain to them about the reasons why players get picked, teams get picked, events that happened that they don't know about. And hopefully one day, Daniel, will come along. I'm doing some roadshow. I'm doing a roadshow in Nottingham in February. I am speaking currently with the management team. I'd love to take a roadshow to Preston and do a roadshow in Preston. We're currently discussing that at the minute. And I look forward to sitting with the Preston fans and just making sure that they know how things worked, what things took place, and how things came about. And I look forward to that day, Daniel.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of interest in that, I think, if you do come to Preston for that road show. But yeah, that's the end of the show. And we don't want to hear from me. It's only right that you get the final say. What would your parting message be to North End fans as we leave the show?
Fantastic club, fantastic history, magnificent support. Get behind the board, get behind the staff, get behind the players. And with that energy, then you can go and win matches. It's all about winning matches. And I would suggest and recommend to the fans that with that energy, all things can be achieved. And I wish you all the very best. And I wish the club all the very best in the future.